Casper, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Buddy is such a fascinating film because it got me thinking about things I don't think I would have thought about otherwise. I mean, it's a really entertaining movie, but I think the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is I know the roots of this are kind of in how you have kids yourself and you've been exposed to a lot of children's shows over the years. And I think for me, the ones that stand out the most are the ones where people are allowed to have genuine emotions. Like people are allowed to get upset. People are allowed to talk about things that like are bothering them. They're allowed to be difficult. And I think those are the ones that stand the test of time, like the Mr. Rogers and the Sesame Streets. And they don't have to talk about like nuclear war or something deep, but like in contrast to that, Buddy exists in this other kind of show that I think is popular because it's cute, but at the same time, no one is allowed to be difficult. No one is allowed to be upset. And I was wondering if that was something that you thought about when you were coming up with this, that there is this difference in kids' shows where sometimes you can say how you feel, and sometimes, in the case of Buddy, you cannot say that at all.
What an astute question. Yes, absolutely. That was on my mind. And during the period where I was starting to think about this movie and writing this movie, I watched again, second time for me, but first time for my daughters, was the 1970s Bad News Bears. And you don't get any more contrast of how kids
Yeah.
behave. I mean, that kind of really shocked them because they are not used to kids portrayed that way. It just doesn't
Yeah.
happen much anymore. So yeah, I did think about it, and it did make me start to think about control and authority and sort of societies that are more restrictive than not. And it just seemed like a very rich vein and a very interesting way to explore those ideas that are applicable in so many ways. So yeah, very astute question.
Buddy, oh buddy, he's cuddly, snuggly, our best friend is Buddy. Our friend until the end is
And the topic of control was something that I wanted to bring up as well because I think when people see the film, and I don't think it spoils anything to say where I'm going with this, but there's so many parallels that you can see between Buddy and Topher Grace's character of Ben, even though like Buddy obviously has an impact on Ben's life. There is that similarity. It's like you can't say anything to this person to make them upset because they will fight you at every single turn and insist that there's nothing wrong. Was that something that you wanted to parallel between like the world of Buddy and the world of the adults and the kids that are in the world that would watch Buddy?
Again, man, this you're on
It's-
fire, Andrew. A very astute question, and you'll notice there is one line where uh, Ben and Buddy have very similar lines, like they kind of echo each other. So yes, that was intentional.
Yeah, and it's this whole thing of like sort of toxic positivity mask as a masquerade for control tactics in a lot of ways. And I think that's something else that comes across in it. How do you know when you've set the right tone for Buddy as a character, that balance between the mirthful and the menacing?
It's a matter of feeling it out and experimenting in the script and in directing and then editing. And in editing, we had the luxury of we got Keegan-Michael Key, who does the voice of Buddy, to do his lines later. And Keegan and I worked together to try different variations of the lines, different layers of passive aggressiveness or irritation, or not at all. And then I could kind of really dial it in each scene of the degree I would want that, if at all.
What's going on?
The show with the orange unicorn. I've searched everywhere, and there's no mention of it.
It's just some forgotten show from the 90s.
Yeah, but there's nothing.
Yeah, and I feel like it also comes across in the physical performance of Buddy as well. And a bit that I love that's actually in the trailer is when Buddy just gets fed up and drops the broom. I think it's such a great moment of just being passive aggressively irate. What was the coming up with the physicality of Buddy like?
I got to give a lot of credit to Sergey, the suit actor in there. He really went dialed in that script and really made choices. And sometimes I would have to guide him a little, but I really got to give him credit for making great choices there. And in fact, I think with the example you give with the broom, that was his idea. And I'm like, yes, it's just the right amount. It's the lightest touch. It's not showing his hand too hard at all.
Yeah. And you have a great cast of kids in this film as well, and I think it's not only a difficult thing to find kids that can go through the rigors of something that actually becomes a horror movie and can be scary, but they in something like Buddy, they also have to have really good comedic timing. And I was wondering, I feel like that's a harder thing to find than finding a kid that could find their way through a horror movie, but finding a kid that actually has like a sense of comedic timing. What was the process of casting like to find kids that could do both?
Um, it's a good question. We did get to do auditions, and I I try not to be a jerk, and like some people will give 5, 10 page auditions, and I'm not going to do that to a kid. So I crunched it down to as short as possible, maybe 3 pages, and I tried to have scenes that would and even if I needed to, I would write additional lines that aren't actually in the final script to give them a chance to exercise their range on this front in terms of comedic and dramatic. And then also it was a process of watching the auditions, and there was a lot of good auditions, but there were times where you're watching a series of the same scene over and over and over, and you start to hate what you wrote and think you need to rewrite it. And then all of a sudden somebody comes along and then you sit forward and you don't hate what you wrote anymore and you think it is working because they're making it work. And it just shows the magic of that. I mean, you look like a film fan. I'm a huge fan of Robert Altman, and he has that famous quote about directing is 90% casting.
It's true. It's true. And it's also such a visual film. There's so many delightful practical effects and puppet effects and suits and just the general design of everything. Was there any one effect on the set that was more difficult to pull off than the others?
Oh boy, that's tough because there were a lot of difficult effects. I think the working with the mannequin who occurs later in the movie was just difficult in general because the strings had to be very, very, very long for it and to be out of frame, and that was tricky. And then also a later scene, a death scene. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. A lot of those scenes, or a gory scene, I guess I would say. A lot of those scenes. I would be told, well, you get one of these because we don't have time to clean. By the time this was cleaned, we got to be on to the other scene. By the time we've cleaned all the blood off the walls, we've got to be on to the next scene. So you better make this one count. And then I'd be like, can I have a second camera then, please?
If we can't have more time, can I at least get another camera?
Yeah.
And one of the best images is watching a kind of beaten and battered Buddy making his way around. It's just such a great thing to see. But I imagine that also took some thought in terms of how that was going to look because Buddy has to have this thing where he's like, he has to be like this cute, fluffy guy, and then you have to expose that underneath there's something else going on. And I feel like that's something that, like, you have to really find through trial and error. So, how did the battered look of Buddy?
I guess I wanted it to look pretty horrible, pretty shocking, pretty destabilizing to see an authority figure in control like that. Sort of in the way that this is, I don't know why this analogy popped in my head, but there was, I think it was some French protesters that would start throwing pies in the face of powerful people like Bill Gates. I wish they would come back because that would be, although it's very scary for them and I don't want that,
Yeah, yeah.
but it it would help us to see these sort of masters of the universe that are kind of calling the shots of the world right now get pies in the face to kind of understand that they're not invulnerable. They're not deities, you know?
Yeah. And I another thing that I love about this film that I think is also from some of your other work as well, there's some kind of nostalgic jolt that I think people get from seeing a VHS wobble whenever
Yes.
it comes into a movie. And I think you in this and in Too Many Cooks have found a way to make it both comedic and kind of frightening and ominous. And I was wondering for you, how do you tweak a wobble to be funny or to be scary?
Oh man, that's a lot of uh it just is a lot of trial and error, but you're making me think about very early in my career when I was at Cartoon Network, I did a promo simulating this old cartoon from before my time called Birdman. Not to be confused, Harvey Birdman was based on it, but it was the Hanna-Barbera cartoon. And it had a mix of original from the show and the new animation, and we were trying to make the new animation look old. And we were getting closer and closer, but it still wasn't quite right. Forgive me this big digression. And then I finally figured it. We finally figured out that what was missing was gate weave because it was on film, and film in a projector will weave slightly. So we had to simulate the gate weave. So I just guess I've always been into trying to get that as close as possible. That's a long way of saying I like to just get it as true as possible and let that do the rest.
Yeah, and it made me think that hopefully someday someone will do the same thing with like a DVD menu. The
Yes.
ominous DVD menu. You click on something you're not supposed to be clicking on.
Oh, I would love to do that. Oh yeah, another idea I had recently was to do a movie that you're watching on the plane and it keeps getting interrupted by pilot announcements where it pauses and the pilot is saying increasingly ominous things about your flight.
That would also be a great film. Anyway, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Andrew, this was a joy. I really appreciate it. Great
Thanks. I had a
questions.
blast, and the movie's great. Like, obviously, like I said, I thought about things a lot more than I thought I would from something like this. So, kudos to you, man. I appreciate it.
That's the heroin high I'm chasing is to get thoughtful people like you thinking about it.
Like what you just saw? Why don't you check out one of these other videos? While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date with what we have going on over here at the channel. As always, thanks for watching. Have a lovely day, and take care of yourselves.